Hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host Ads Lyson. A couple of things before we get started this week. If you want 15% off your Northcore gear, go to Northcore and use the discount code, capital letters, Grumpy Surfer 15 to get 15% off your purchase. Also, Braw are a Scottish surfing brand. If you want anything off their merchandise, go to their website at brawsurf.co.uk and use the code Grumpy Surfer, capital letters, to receive 20% off your purchase. And they do some absolutely amazing gear, hoodies, t-shirts, long tees. And if you go to YouTube and search for Braw Surf, they've got some absolutely fantastic edits out there too. So the podcast this week is going to be the first podcast I ever did back in the 7th of July 2020, which is when I started the podcast. And it was kind of random. The reason why I started the podcast all that time ago really was because I was listening to podcasts in my car commuting to work and thought, you know what, I can do that. So I did it. I just went along, bought a couple of microphones and here we are today. So John Thompson is the guest for the first ever podcast, a friend of mine. We've done numerous Afghanistan tours together. He's also one of the highest awarded Royal Marines, Conspicuous Gallantry Cross. He has a mention in dispatches, and we talk about that in the podcast. It's a long one, but it's a good one, full of military stories, lots of banter, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing it with him. Hopefully I'll be able to do a third one with him, just to finish off what we were talking about in the very first podcast. So please enjoy my conversation with my really good friend, John Thompson. Tomo, first podcast. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
It's pretty cool.
You know, the whole premise of it, really, you of us getting together was talking about Herrick 5, really. Because I sent you a few photos about it a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, what I'd like to just talk to you about is, a little bit about you before you joined the Corps. Where you grew up and stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm John, or Tomo, as people would know me in the military. I'm a commando and served with ads on operational tours and spent a good proportion of our younger male days drinking beer, doing fizz, and generally having a cracking time. I grew up in Plymouth, a big naval town. Parents were both in the Navy. And I'm probably like the generic type of person that joins the military. In that I'm from a low socioeconomic background, no carpets on the floors and nothing in the cupboard. And unfortunately, my parents had divorced at an early age, and there was quite a violent and alcoholic upbringing. And it was a strange place to be as a young man, with a lack of positive male role models. But one of the most profound, I suppose, recollections of my childhood and the Marines was I had a visit. My sister and my mum and I flew by Wessex helicopter on board a ship that then went alongside my dad's ship. And when we landed in the helicopter, the first person I saw was a beatnik. And I was just this little 4 or 5-year-old boy landed on the back of a ship, and then I just saw this giant of a man in front of me with a massive moustache, and I remember saying to my mum, who's that? And she said, that's a Roman commando, son. And
How did you get on the Wessex?
I don't remember that bit.
No, it must be a prolific thing if you're just thinking about it.
I just remember landing. I remember my sister and I having the same, because this is back in the day, 42 now, where my mum would knit her own jumpers, so it looked super cool. Nice Rocking. Brown cardigan with buttons at the front. My sister and I had the same, but I just remember this guy standing in front of me with a big bushy moustache, and he was so big. And and it's one of the things that my mum says to me sometimes, when she recalls our childhood. And from that was the first time I'd ever seen a Marine. I suppose growing up, same as most people, it's with mum and dad getting divorced, I was kind of surrounded by not an exceptional group of males in my sort of objective reality, the environment in which I grew up in. I spent a lot of time reading books and diving into adventure books like Swallows and Amazons or the hero story that's in Lord of the Rings.
We used to do a lot more reading though, didn't we, when we were younger? Because we didn't have this is, showing our age a little bit, but we didn't have tablets and YouTube and all this sort of thing, The only entertainment you had was probably about 3 channels if they worked, if you got signal, and and books and stuff like that, So I read similar things to you, like Lord of the Rings and stuff.
Even in younger core days, you'd go on ship and it would be specific books passed around. And I think we've lost something in society with that, because I find myself picking up this phone and spending hours and hours lost in YouTube algorithms. I love it. I do love it. Same as you, listen to podcasts, epic fail compilations and cat videos and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I would read books, and in those books, because we never had the money to go on holiday or anything, but in those books I would be whisked away into a world where you were the adventurer. Because as you're reading it, like Labyrinth, the book Labyrinth, you're reading the adventure story, or even the movie Goonies, and it didn't matter what age you were the protagonist in the movie, and you could be the hero. So something quite profound about that, which is something I've been delving into recently, which is some self-reflection, is what's created the person that I am now. And it's those stories in the Indiana Jones movies and the Star Wars movies where the protagonist hero was there, and because I didn't have positive male role models, I then modelled myself on them, which sounds, in Marine talk, we would say Chad, but it's real impactful time in your developmental years. So from 3 to 14, the greatest amount of time in which you develop into the person you're going to be for the rest of your life.
But the only sort of reality you really get, especially, for me and probably you as well, you didn't really have that look into life when you were younger. The only escapism you had were in watching Predator or watching an Arnold Schwarzenegger film, which, if you look at it now, you just think of it, oh my fucking God, there's shit blowing up everywhere. There's no way any of that would be realistic. But those are kind of, if you didn't have those male role models around you, you solidifying yourself with those type of people, weren't you?
Yeah, I don't know whether there was a need for those types of movies generated by Hollywood based upon what the market wanted, or whether as a byproduct of World War II, and then the psychological experiments like Milford with his come in here, press a button, electrocute somebody, or the what was it? I'm probably going to get the university wrong, but I think it's San Diego with a guy called what's his name? I forget. He does a police experiment on how human beings would interact with each other, and what level of discrimination and persecution they would go through. Zimbalist, that's the guy, that's the psychologist, Zimbalist. Whether there was a need in those times to have these adventure hero movies, or maybe it was economical. In the 80s, you had Lost Boys, you had all those sorts of actors that were in the same sort of films. There's a film called Mercedes, where it's all the rich kids in America. Yeah, that's what I want to aspire to be. I remember Cobra is there's a murder every 12 seconds, there's a rape every 18 seconds. And if you got to go down to the video store and pick up get away with getting a 15 or an 18, you're all right. But there's some cracking films, and they were really deeply impactful on me and my psyche. Because as a kid, you don't know anything, do you? All you know is what people call their objective reality, which is their parents and the intimate environment in which they grow up in. And then when you leave that objective reality to go to school, we're just making personalities up on ego. So it's either with clothes or who you hang around with or what you say, because you don't really know who you are. So I think growing up, although it hasn't, I don't think it's changed so much. It's become a little bit more pressurised with the material world and what you're supposed to have, which I never had.
I think with social media these days and the amount of information and content that's constantly pumped at you, you know, before that came about, it was very sort of like streamlined. There wasn't stuff coming in from all different angles.
Yeah.
Where now, you know, I can see why society sometimes can be quite confusing for people, is because you've got lots of different people with lots of different feeds coming into you, telling you to do lots of different things, or to think something different, or think this way or think that way, when, you know, before then there wasn't that.
No, it was just like, this is what you're supposed to be. So I suppose the dichotomy there is, nowadays with social media, is the positive and negative. So the positive is it caters for everybody. Whereas when we were kids, goths were weirdos.
My sister was a goth.
Yeah, kind of sexy as well.
I wouldn't call her. It's a bit weird calling my sister sexy.
Right, but you know, it didn't cater for the peripherals of what the normal society was. So you were, it was the Chad Michaels. You're a jock, and you wear these clothes and you follow this sort of line. Whereas now it broadens, but it also So the flip side of that dichotomy is the negativity is it becomes far more complicated because it's new and you don't know where you are and where you fit. And it's not traditional in the sense that it's been established for a long period of time. So people are just discovering the more facets to character that are out there now, and then it, you know, in that exploration of that character, the voices become really loud. But yeah, it's social media is a really it's a real force for good, but can obviously be a force for bad as well.
Yeah. I hate it. I hate it and I love it. You know, there's a lot. I mean, you know me. I'm mega into my surfing and stuff. So the grasp I can get, I can't get enough of it. It's everywhere. You get the clips from the pros and stuff. It's awesome. Yeah. You got a few funny people on, like a guy called John Wayne Freeman from America. He puts loads. He's not like a pro surfer, but it's just like, you know, super funny. Yeah. It's good to get those sort of things, but then on the flip side of it as well, you know, you walk around cafes and restaurants and even just everyday life, and people are just absorbed into their screens and stuff. And I think, you know, even though I'm talking about it thinking I'm better than everybody else because of that, I'm guilty of it as well. Especially I've got 2 young kids at home as well, you know, and they're really good for it actually. You know, like yesterday, my little boy, he's 3, he's like, Dad, you know, can I have a hug? Can I do this? And can I do that? And my missus is like that. Get off your phone. He's talking to you. And do you know what? It's like, shit, I didn't even realise that I was ignoring him, because you get so consumed with something that's that easy.
I mean, I'm a single dad, so full-time still in the Corps, whatever rank I am. Single dad. A 20-year-old who's studying sports science and coaching at a university. A 6-year-old and a little dude who's just turned 5. So I find in the absolute crazy busyness of my day, up, breakfast, clean, ironing, school run, back, work through lunch, try and do some exercise, pick the kids up, back, snacks, entertain, dinner, entertain, bedtime story, clean the house, do the washing, that I am immersing myself more into this amazing technology, where I feel that I'm pushing those people that are the most important away from me, and it worries me. Actually, it worries me. What are the echoing effects for that? So when I was saying about these not having proper positive male role models when I was younger, it's had an effect on me now. And I'm realising that as I come to the end of my career, and you unpack this huge part of your life, which was probably made greater by the fact that we had less distractions, so we were more ingrained as brotherhood with each other, interpersonal skills. I remember waking up at sort of like 7 o'clock in the morning, absolutely ring bolted, and then one of the lads, like Steve, would come in with a crate of Carlsberg on a Saturday morning and say, "Let's get on it." Yeah, I can see that it's going to push people apart, but it also allows you to bridge gaps in geographical location. So my auntie, for example, I don't really keep in touch with a lot of my extended family. I'm more interested in my immediate family. I can video call her, and it's instant, and it's perfect screen. So it allows a lot of people to stay in touch. A lot of people on the lowest scales of the socioeconomic spectrum to be able to engage with public services rather than having to be on a phone by putting 10p's in a phone box, because that was the only way to interact, whereas they can just send an email and it's kind of affordable. So there are good parts there.
Yeah, I think especially if you look at like recruiting for the Royal Marines now, like two of my mates are on the PRMC and the Corps Colonels in the Corps Colonels department for like recruiting and advertising. And when I first heard about it, what they were doing was, because of COVID kicked in, they weren't able to run the PRMCs for recruiting. So what they were doing, I think this is what they were doing anyway. I might be speaking absolute bullshit, but I think they were doing like the bleep tests and stuff over like Zoom.
Oh, okay.
And they were giving them encouragement. They were, giving them tidbits and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's how they were grading individual people. Now, bearing in mind, when you get guys come down for a PRMC to the potential Royal Marines course, you get like 30 or 40 guys on there now to do that for each individual person as opposed to a collective group. It's quite wearing, but without like what we're talking about there, with the technology we have now, it's pretty cool. You can do something like that.
Well, I mean, so Zoom. So I've done a few webinars and interacted with a few people, because just going through the end of the career, and we do this thing called resettlement, where we pick a new career out of the ether to see if we like it, and then we sort of train towards it. Is that one? You can do those Zoom things at any time of the day, so it's resource efficient. And having the ability to do that with this technology is crisis management. So if you have the agility of thought in order to go, well, how do we deal with this COVID-19 problem and the isolation? But we've still got to keep the wheel moving in every facet of industry, not just the military. We've got huge crises all across every facet of the economy and industry, from the top to the bottom. So it affects absolutely everyone. Some people got more money saved than others, and it's they'll have the differences, but it allows the machine to keep moving, because what we can't do, and it's not just the military, but it's gas engineers, it's plumbers, it's nuclear engineers, it's how do we keep the power going to the nation, and Zoom still as well, say Zoom, but any of these video conferencing things allow you to do that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if it's PRMC on a video chat, they've just got to show that they get a grade. Anyone can do 18. Well, I can't anymore. My belly weight's down too much. But 18 pull-ups. You do that, and then they get the date to go there anyway. And really, training starts on day one.
But they go down. I think they do a month now before they join training. So I'm not sure whether they do the PRMC over Zoom, but then they go down for 4 weeks before, and they stay in some of the. Do you remember the old? Where like the museum was behind behind the foundation.
Yeah.
Those what do you call them? Those oh my god, I've completely forgot what they're called.
Dorms.
Yeah, like the annexes.
Yeah.
By the ML's block.
Yeah.
I think they stay there.
Oh, the port cabins.
The port cabins. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And what they do is they it's not pass or fail. they have a little look, a longer look, because they're on camp, and they look at what the Marines is like. They do some gym sessions, they do some, they do some runs, and then at the end of those 4 weeks, they then start day one, week one. So in reality, when they're doing like 8 months of training, they're actually with the precursor month before. And I think that's a really good idea.
See, I get it, and it means you get the right people who've made an informed choice joining. So then you get more buy-in from the individual. But the other side of me is like, fuck that. When I got off the train, I was scared, and I think fear is such a positive driver, and a catalyst for determination and ambition, that you just go along with the flow and you just keep going and keep going and keep going. For me, well, we came from a different generation of recruits and bootnecks. That's true. That, we were probably outside more. We were left on alone more. So we came up with our own judgments and understandings and problem solving when we're out with our mates, and we're like, oh no, I've got a flat tire, how am I going to fix this? Or now I'm going to build a tree house and do that. Or now I'm going to jump in Barry's garden and nick his gooseberries. Barry's the next para, chase you off, then hide from your mum. Whatever. We came up with these solutions. It was kind of like Stand By Me movie sort of sketch. Whereas I would like to throw people more in the deep end, as deep as we were in, because if people have done it before, there's no reason why they can't do it again. There's no impossibilities to that.
Yeah, but I think people aren't really as socially adjusted. I mean, let's go back 40 years, right, or even when we joined up, 20 odd years ago, right? So there would have been guys at the tail end of their career going, lads, these days, So each generation that comes through, I guarantee you, from the Second World War all the way up to now, everyone would have been saying exactly the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So, us saying that, people aren't outdoors enough, they're not, let's use the term snowflakes, because that's what people use these days. But when you get put into an environment like that, there's no sugarcoating it.
No.
It's hard, and it's disgusting. And it's not something that you're used to, regardless of what background you come from. So you kind of just have to develop it and get into it. Otherwise, you're not going to pass anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, you're absolutely right. And sometimes it takes just having conversations to remind yourself of different perspectives, because perspective is everything.
It's massive. Yeah,
huge. And your perspective on a situation, not you ads, but you as in day one, week one recruit, your perspective of the training team and how fearful they are might be different from somebody else's because of their background. And actually, I was talking to my daughter's friends the other day. She had her 20th birthday up here, and some of her university friends, I buggered off for the weekend, and they sort of just got drunk around the house. And I was talking to them when I got back. And do you know what? Just by having a conversation with them, I realised that there isn't that much difference. It's just the fact that now I'm a dad and I'm not out in the wide world, and I've been stuck behind a gate, inverted commas, with my fingers that nobody can see, that you become detached from society. Because that was also the most wonderful thing about being based in Plymouth, was you could go out, you could have a great time, make a fool of yourself, maybe get arrested, but you were always safe once you got back to camp. Yeah. And you were surrounded by your peer group of everybody who was supportive of each other. And supporting each other also means taking the piss out of each other with our very unique military style sense of humour. It makes you could speak to each other on a very compassionate level about problems and issues, and somebody would listen to you, because we're all brothers, oppos. We've all got, the thing about looking to each other's eyes. Are your pupils dilated? Is your skin cold and clammy because you're looking out for hypothermia? Heat exhaustion. We're always looking out for each other in the non-verbal ways. So I think that used to transfer in just having normal conversations, but also in, if you were flapping about something, which is Marine for panicking, somebody would contextualise it by either taking the piss out of you or saying, "Oh, well, when I did that, it was harder."
Yeah. No, I get it. It's difficult to put comparisons in because, it's not like you can jump in a fucking time machine and go back or, de-age yourself, is it really? Yeah. It is a difficult scenario to kind of go, well, is it any harder now or easier now than it was?
But where I worry about it is I mean, I don't see any fundamental difference between anybody over the last 2,000 years. I think we're all, we've had however many hundreds of thousands of millions of years of evolution to create us now in this very short part of the world's time scale. So I don't really see there's that much difference from the guys who joined up to storm across the beaches in Normandy to the kid who's thinking about joining the military now. I think we're driven by the same factors. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a fantastic thing that shows you in a very simple way, but also speaks in volumes the way that our minds work. It's just that surrounding white noise of social media and the egocentric pursuit of trying to fit into society with different people. So where it really concerns me is when you get to a battlefield and a stressful situation. So that's why I like fear, because fear puts you in an uncomfortable place. And that's the great thing about military training is it allows you to be scared. And when you're scared and stressed, you start to regress into your mind, past the higher cognitive functioning part, into the mammalian brain with basic human emotions, and down into the reptilian brain, your id, with your actual survival, your survival mechanisms. Whereas military training is great because you're constantly being stressed and constantly being asked to think and be lucid about it. What are you doing now? Where are you? How much ammo you've got? Who's over there? What direction's the enemy?
Do you know, I think that's a learned thing though, because you talk about going through training. I was fucking petrified from day one of going through the door. I'm not going to mention any names, but a certain somebody who knows who he is. Just terrified Andrew.
Yeah. Terrified
me from day one to the end. I was just scared of doing anything wrong. And I got to the point where I was like that. I just want to get out the door. But then, when did you join up? 98?
98,
yeah. So I joined up 2000 and passed out 2001. So we did similar things. I think I passed out of training. I went to Kamach, which is Fleet Protection Group, Royal Marines now, and then did that for about a year, and then went on my tanks course, and then literally straight after my tanks course, you're going back to Scotland again, and Twin Towers happened, and boom, within 3 or 4 months, I was out in Afghanistan.
Yeah. I was on ship when the Twin Towers came down in the Northern Arabian Gulf, and we were like in the galley, so where everyone would eat, with literally square plates, just watching it on a TV, going, "Are we going to go to war? Are we going to go to war?"
Mate, I was like that. I know I'm going to be in 6 months.
Yeah,
it's pretty much
good times. Good times. That's really hot. Kind of similar. So the similar time, and I had the same experience in my training team. So my troop striper was a guy called Greg, who now I get on with. I actually passed him in rank a few years ago. And he sound, on a personal level, the sound. But there's a role to play as part of the training team. It's a game. It's a game to push people to the limits expected by the criteria set to pass the commando course and to be a functional commando at the end.
Well, we know all about that, don't we?
Yeah.
So we know what happened when we went through the Skillet Arms.
Yeah.
And then we was on a training team.
And then... but it's also a mechanism for you to push the individual past their own understanding of where they can go and how far they can be. So they've got to be cold, they've got to be wet, they've got to want to quit, and then have something in their mind that goes, no, I'm going to carry on, I'm going to carry on. And it taps into the real fundamental human nature that we all have to survive. It's a really fantastic mechanism to create individual leaders and managers. And what I mean by that is people who can be innovative and take control of themselves, but also manage all the peripheral thoughts that go around their head and their life and where they are, so their own welfare, how happy they are, their personal life, their finances, their own administration, i.e., right, I need to have this kit ready by this time at that time, so I need to then have a systematic approach. This is where training and real life combat operations that you and I have been on are so dissimilar. So you get two different types of functioning person. One who has got a systematic type of brain, one who's got a creative type of brain. Creative types are generally the people who paint pictures and are empathic, but they're also the people that think fast on their feet. They see a situation and they deal with it, and that's what warfare is. It's more of the creative mind space on the tactical level. Then you move up to a strategic level, and then the other type of person that comes in who may be excellent in getting all the kit arranged, but you then say, right, now you're in contact in a training scenario, and this man's now a casualty, and right, radio this through, where's the enemy, where are you? That's when they start to break apart. But when they sit down and start to look at the strategic level, then they're an asset as well. And having been on the officer training team, we look for different types of people on there. So we might be able to identify good commanders who'll be good on the battlefield, but what you can also see is an excellent staff officer who will take the corps further and further forward than the field commander, and also the person that can develop good comprehensive plans that are well thought out. A little bit different in recruit training because you're looking for something different.
Well, you're just trying to get the guy from day one, week one to the end. You're just trying to get him to command response. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, we are teaching guys to be thinking soldiers, to improvise, adapt and overcome. That's a terminology we use quite a lot. But also to be robust enough to go, you've been told to do that, you go and do it, and you go and do it no matter what. Mm-hmm. If the situation arises where they might not be able to do it in a certain way, that's where I think the bootnet mentality, which kind of gets drummed into you from day one, week one, and as you progress, you develop it a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's when you start to think on your feet a little bit more, and going back to the point on, has society changed, and the way that, guys go through training and then they come out the other side and, they might be a little bit softer. I think until they get put into the situation where they're putting their training and their conscious ability to adapt to different situations, like in their first contact, mm-hmm. unless they're in that situation, they're not going to know whether they're going to be able to respond in the correct way that they've been taught.
No, absolutely. I mean, I was on HMS Ark Royal on Telic 1, so the full-scale land invasion of Iraq by coalition forces, watching on TV Patriot missiles crash into Baghdad, going down into the tank deck of the ship, waiting for the light to go green to get on a series of helicopters to land on the Al-Faw Peninsula after BRF's helicopter had been shot down and some really important people killed as they were trying to land. Really concerned about how I was going to react. Am I going to react in the right way? Because the only context you've got for war is in movies. Very few movies. That's why some critically acclaimed directors Full Metal Jacket, mm-hmm. that really really opened the eyes to warfare, or Saving Private Ryan, which was on when I was going through training.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
that really tap into what it's like. That is that ramp goes down on the beach, Juno, I think it was, and then everyone's dead. You're like, oh my god.
So
is that what you're going to expect? Are you going to be the man that goes through, or are you going to be up 'em? Are you going to be that what we would call a pussy? But you don't know that until the situation, you know. And it's the bravest people that push past their fear or go into fear and then come back out, which is why I think fear is so important. Which is why I think you can kind of create that by. I mean, this will be terrible on this, but like being in a press-up position for an extended period of time, because you start to regress inside your brain.
Well, it's not necessarily that. I mean, I think to a certain. I mean, we were at Livingston on a train team when we started taking recruits through on the tail end of Herrick 5. I remember we were quite angry when we came back from that tour. We'll talk about Herrick 5 in a bit, like, but you know, we were quite angry. We literally just, you know, I got blown up. You'd come back. You know, we had friends that had got injured and hurt and stuff out there, and then we got asked to come back and does anyone want to volunteer to go back to the Commando Training Centre to take recruits through? Because, you know, we were the first people.
I'm both newly married.
Yeah. We were in a live, constant contacts for 6 to 8 months. First time since, you know, probably the Second World War.
Well, even driving around. I mean, I suppose we digress, but like we were the first people to go over ground.
Dominate the ground before the Russians. Yeah.
You know, the terraforming, first mine strikes, first IED strikes. So
going into recruit training and you know, when I from personal experience taking the first 2 troops through that I did, you know, there were guys there that didn't hit the standard. Which what you would do is you'd back troop them, which means, you know, they would go back to the troop behind or the troop behind that, relearn the things that they failed on, and then they would come back through the system. So you didn't just get rid of them. But, you know, coming from a situation where you know that the things you're trying to install into them, they're not doing straight away. Man, I got so angry doing it, and I remember we had conversations when we was on the
do you know,
skill arms, and you were like that.
This is, do it. I mean, this is one of the things with a course like that. So you come off Herrick 5, which was super kinetic. In fact, it was a glory. If you speak to anyone who's in our company, J Company, it was glorious. It was absolutely glorious. I think anyway. And I'm sure there's so many people that remember it fondly as some of the best times of their life. Because you can't replicate that. You can't replicate it from bungee jumping. You can't replicate it from whatever those dudes with the wingsuits in jumping down mountains. You can't replicate that level of life or death. This is serious, which is where the problems come when you come back and somebody sorts of pushed in front of you in a McDonald's queue, and you're like, I can kill you if you do that. But then you go to skill at arms, and it's obviously it's structured because they want to create a standardized set of instructors that are delivering a standardized set of instructions because people are just learning.
Well, when guys go through training, you're not teaching them. I spin a story. So I remember joining the training wing, going to the sergeant major, and the first thing he said to me is that just remember, we're not training these lads to go to Afghan. And I was like, have you not been watching the news? Like,
Afghan's going to go on for another 10 years.
You know, there's 2 ways I could really look at that. You know, I could have got a little bit pent up, which I did, and I was like, hey, mate, you're an absolute twat. What the fuck? Like, that's what I was thinking.
Mate, my next door neighbour who has PTSD and some mental health issues. I'm not going to say any names or where I live, but he left training and went straight to Afghan. Whereas, so, you know, our similar backgrounds is, I mean, I left training in So I did start training in 98, left as a diamond and PT medal and all that kind of stuff. And the infantry support weapon medal, so I was like legend on a light support weapon, the LMG, LSW.
LSW, yeah.
Yeah, just gave it to me. And then I sat on the gate for a month waiting for a tanks course. So I was like kind of by myself, and then had a tanks course, and then joined 40 Commando support company, where I was I was a 20-year-old bloke, so still the same height as I am now, maybe a little bit skinnier. And then I joined a bunch of what we would call sweats, so experienced guys, like Marines who'd done 16 years. I had to live on a windowsill for the first 6 weeks when I moved into the grots, even though there was a bed, and I had to have not the new kit bags, but the old shit small kit bags.
Yeah.
I had to be up and packed away before. I can't even name their names. Before there was 2 grot daddies who were awake,
Yeah.
and I wasn't allowed to go to bed until they'd gone to bed. And then they would never clean up for rounds on a Friday. They'd come in shit-faced on a Thursday night and like throw KFC all around the room. And then one of them would drag the TV and the VHS and a porno video into his grot. And then you'd wake up, me and Al, Richie, Mulkey, and some other guys. We'd have to clean up. But then you had time. So we had at Northern Ireland, but you had time to learn. So you had the standardised training, but you'd have time to learn and to watch other people and how they did it. So you're like, okay, so what? We've got excellent rations now, but back when we were younger, you take garlic granules, you would take some noodles, you would do things to make life better for yourself. So there was more prep, which then made more of a thinking soldier. And I don't know whether that detracts now because it's all handed to you. So
I don't know. You still have to learn things as you go along. You get taught the basics. And
Or does it just take away an element that you don't need to think about and makes it easier to actually concentrate on your job, which is probably more the mindset for it. But yeah, we had a chance to learn how to be thinking soldiers more than those during the Iraq and Afghan days who would then pass out of training and go straight there. And they move straight into an organisation where they're like, oh, they might be a battle casualty replacement and come in halfway through the tour. And then, they're looked at by the rest of their company. Like, who are you? Right, you're going to carry this. So their perception must have been terrible. So when my neighbour told me about his PTSD, I was like, what a beefer. And then I sat down and thought about it. I was like, God, I mean, I'd already done Iraq and Northern Ireland. Already got an MID for Telic 1, was a corporal, was respected within the M Company and J Company, and 4-2 and 40 Commando.
Yeah.
Had a great set of friends. Was a person of standing within our peer group, the same as yourself.
Mm.
So it's easy for me to go onto the battlefield. But these younger guys who just go straight in, bloody hell. I suppose, the level of fear that their experience is just through the roof.
Recce by fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. We were very similar. I think you go through your career sometimes, and you kind of just shadow people like where they go. We were very similar. I mean, when you passed out, you obviously went on the gate and stuff. But I went up to 4-5 for a year and a bit.
Mm.
Then I went on my tanks course, and
got any bits about Kmatch?
Huh? I got
none
quite
for
a
this
few.
podcast.
Being made to play Big Brother in the back of a Land Rover snatch wagon because you got voted out by all the lads. So I had to sleep in the back of a snatch wagon while
that's hoofing.
over the weekend. So Friday through to Monday morning.
That's hoofing.
Right, I had to get your sleeping bag. Out you go.
But people would call that bullying. But it's part of the humour.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I think it's funny.
It's how you take it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went
voted out by the lads.
Mate, it's mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know we also had one that got stopped after a bit where I can't remember what it was called, but you got put into a metal locker for the day. So the only time you were allowed out this metal locker was if you wanted to go to the toilet. You just got shot in the locker, that was it.
Oh,
you had to be quiet.
Rolling dice is fun.
Yeah. Millennium Falcon, so losing and having to sit in front of a fire hydrant where the lads just hosed you down up against the brick wall, getting peppered with. Anyway, we could go on.
But I think that's like joining runs. So I think joining runs are fundamental. There's obviously a boundary to which they go, and you and I have been to a joining run that was in mainstream media.
Yeah.
So there's boundaries. There should be boundaries. Of course, there should be boundaries. But one, they're fun. They're bonding sessions, and two, like my joining run at 40 Commando was like an assault course, being shot at with air rifles and like. Well, you started in a repack box. So a repack box, if anyone doesn't know, is like a big cardboard box with all your kit in it. And when you leave training, you write your name and number on it. It goes to the next unit. So you have your repack box, and you'd have a respirator on, so a gas mask for anyone who's a civilian. And then these old gas masks used to be, because you've got to still drink once you're in a nuclear, biological, and chemical environment. You'd pop out the drinking straw and put it into a black water bottle, but that would be filled with Sheppy cider. So it was so you'd be absolutely shit-faced, and then at a specific time, get out of the box, and you'd have to fight your way out of the box, and then you'd be led around an assault course, jumping into bushes, and whilst you're doing that, getting shot at by air rifles. Even going to like dinner at 40 Commando.
It was the same before 5.
Yeah. You just, as you're walking back from the galley, you just see windows open, and you're like, and you get shot by lads with air rifles.
Hard target to get back to the accommodation.
We saw even so back in sport company days, there would be like there was more people living in, and there was better accommodation, so it's more open space. So you had less personal space unless you were a lance corporal or corporal, you had a cabin or you'd been in for a few years. So you were living with each other and bonding, and you intimately knew your mates who were, you know, a boot throw away if they were snoring. So I thought they were wonderful times. So you'd have all these older guys there, and they would all be policed properly, and it was all good fun. But what you did after training was then, in a kind of slapstick way, show everyone that you were prepared to do the same things as they had done. It's when it goes over the top that it becomes a problem. But that's why we do these things, because in doing what each other says, especially in a male-dominated organisation like the Marines, there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
So we're all alpha males, and like, who's the toughest alpha male? Don't know, but there's mutual respect there that you don't even cross. So we don't argue about anything. It's all about the mission and mission success. So we'll work out what the best way to have equilibrium in that environment is, and I wonder. And the proof is in the pudding. You know, we'll see what happens with Future Commander Force concept and how it develops. I'm sure it won't change. Guys will go, they'll land on the beach and then they're going to take the objective. They'll land on the beach and they're going to take the objective. But I just the core that I know is different from the core that it is today. And because my whole life's been like yours, has been invested in it, like passionately invested in it. Family comes second, core comes first. When you realise that, and you switch, like at our age now, when you switch it around, you're like, no, family's first, core second. It's a real big part of who you are.
Yeah, I think we might as well just go straight into it now. Like the Herrick 5 period definitely made you grow up. I think it made you realise that. I'm getting goosebumps just like thinking about it. It just made you realise that life's too short.
It is too short.
And you know, when you know, I know I said we'll talk about Herrick 5, but after Herrick 12, I was like, no, my cat lives are gone now. I've been shot at, I've been blown up that many times now. I'm like that. I'm just counting down the days that I'm going to catch it up. Like, but you know, when we went into those Herrick 5 days, it was like We were all very similar.
Well, we had no kids. We had no kids.
And it was guns blazing.
Yeah,
it was like, right, drive me into that contact. So get everyone out.
Absolutely.
I remember, so...
Do you want to start at the beginning, or do you just want to just spin it?
Well, I joined, I was in M Company to start with, and I went on my juniors. And I was talking to Jay, who was the troop stripey in M Company at the time. And I wanted to come back to the FSG, and I came after I'd done my junior command course, which when you become a corporal, I went and did a couple of weeks down in Lidenhigh to do and it was literally like proper old school Northern Ireland. There was some army guys there saying, "Oh, we've been in Sangin and you know we got shot at and you can't go 10 meters out the gate," you know, telling all these horror stories. I was like, "Nah, whatever. You're a pongo, mate."
Yeah,
a pongo's a guy in the army that we call in the Marines. Anyway, so I
they don't wash.
Yeah, don't wash, don't shower.
Yeah,
and I flew out to Bastion and ended up being told, "Yeah, I'm joining J Company," which I was kind of a bit threaders with to start with because I was, you know, I wasn't with all the lads, and then, you know, I ended up being back with Tomo, with this. What do we call it? Was it FSG then?
It was FSG, but it was free troop.
Yeah, well, it was just a heavy weapons troop, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
And then that
which was built around 5 Wimics, which are stripped down Land Rovers with a general purpose machine gun on the front, which the commander held, a steering wheel which the driver had for protection, and then a guy on the top with either a 50 cal heavy machine gun or a grenade machine gun.
Well, we got grenade machine guns with GMGs, a quarter of the way to halfway through the tour, didn't we?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we did. I'll spin you a story about that. It was fucking funny, but you guys, when I came out to Bastion, you guys have been at like 2 or 3 weeks, hadn't you? You'd already done like. Because we were, you were in FOB. Can we say
Price?
Yeah, we were in FOB Price.
Definitely the best place to be.
Yeah, big time. Which was about 30-40 k's outside of Bastion.
Yeah, so Bastion was west along what we would call the A1, I think it was called, or Highway 1.
Yes, yeah. It linked the western side of Afghanistan to Kandahar, didn't it?
Yeah. It was a great place to be. I mean, I'd been out to Herrick before on what you would call Herrick 3 with groupings from M Company and J Company.
Yeah, that's what you did. Yeah, you went out.
So I went out there when Bastion, which then ended up being like the size of Reading, was 2 dirt mounds, one in an L shape. One was 400 metres and one was about 100 metres, and they were just starting to protect that, to build what was to become, you know, the coalition forces' giant footprint in Afghanistan, or in the Helmand province. But that was nothing really, nothing at all. But I'd been on combat before, so I've been to Talik 1 in Iraq, Operation Talik 1 in Iraq. So I'd seen it, and you know, that's when the first of the sort of 9 lives were being pushed to the limit.
You've never told me this story. So the story where you were in the ambush. That's what you got your MID for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so MID is mentioned in dispatches. I had a mate of mine that was on a tank. You remember Shorty?
Yeah.
Shorty was in
yeah.
your debt, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So, are you comfortable talking about it?
Yeah. I'm just going to find, because unfortunately, all of my military memorabilia is in a safe place. So
while you're doing that, I'll tell you the story that I got told. And this is before I met you, I think, was that you were in a Pinsgower and you were driving from. Were you in Kuwait, or were you driving from Kuwait?
No. So we landed on the Al-Faw Peninsula at what were called PPLs, and basically they were petroleum pipelines that fed from the oil fields to shipping. And Charlie Company had taken a place first, and then Delta Company, which is what I was part of, landed, and then we moved echeloned through Charlie Company to move north up the Al-Faw Peninsula. It's a series of small contacts and things like that. And then the horrendous weather as well. It's back at everyone nowadays everyone's got an individual piece of night vision and an individual laser light module for their weapon, and you know, They've got binoculars that have got night vision, laser rangefinders and compasses in them, and they're amazing pieces of equipment. But then you had one thing called a CWS, which is a common weapon sight, which one person would have. So I would be in a pin scour with this night vision, like second generation night vision, which was shite, driving through cyclone storms, telling my driver go left, go right, and he was like completely blind. But we came up to the Basra Road. So the Basra Road moved like a T-junction, east to west. West was Basra and east was somewhere else. East went to Iran, and a river, I can't remember the river, Bogra Canal, which dissected Iraq from Iran. And I remember being shot at from the Iranian side. And at that T-junction, there's been it looked like an armoured battle or an aerial battle, destroyed like T-54, 55 tanks, T-72 tanks, MTLBs, which is a series of armoured vehicles. An MTLB is like a tractor unit that pulls guns, D-30 artillery guns, 155 or 152 millimetre rounds. And we then moved into something called Operation James. So we moved past, I think it was the 12th Lancers in their Spartans and Scimitars. So there was forward armoured recce. And Delta Company was broken down into something called Mexi Blobs, which were combat teams. So kind of like from the German Infantry Pocketbook of War, which is what the basis of all modern warfare is, was the distribution of mutually supporting weapon systems equally through these three combat groups. So Combat Team 1 had heavy machine guns, GPMGs, and all that kind of stuff. And they went round to the west and around this big fig plantation. We stayed on the road, and I can't remember where Combat Team 2 had gone. As the day progressed, it got hotter, and it was like exceptionally hot. And we moved forward probably about 10 kilometres to another checkpoint, and then stayed there. And I remember eating meatballs and pasta. Tomato meatballs and pasta. Classic. Just pulled it out. Delicious. It wasn't chicken and mushroom pasta, but it was still kind of nice. And then it came over the net, contact, boom, and Combat Team 3 had been ambushed. I still got the fox somewhere, and I wish I could find this citation because I'll just read it out. But basically, we waited out for an order to go and support Combat Team 3, which came, and our pin scours, it was all a little bit more rudimentary than it is nowadays. So in order to have a 50 cal machine gun on there, you would have a pallet, a wooden pallet strapped down with ratchet straps, and then you just place a tripod of the gun on top of it. One would face left, one would face right, one would be firing over the top, and then one would face rear. So you moved around in a packet of four, and we had standard operating procedures, so SOPs, in order to, if it's got contact front, we do this, contact left, we do that, contact rear, we do this, which we went through and discussed in practice. And then and we got called forward. But also on the front of our vehicles, we had 6-foot pickets. Now, for anyone listening, a 6-foot picket is a angular shape piece of steel that you would sort of bang in the ground, and you could put
it's a bit of angle line, isn't it?
That's it.
It's 6-foot bit of angle line.
But they were placed in front, and then they were cut so they would go back on themselves, so that if anybody had dropped wires across the roads to cut your heads off as you were driving, they would then cut through that.
I remember them,
yeah, absolutely. So you're driving around waiting for your head to be cut off. So we drove down to this combat area, and I remember driving up. Mine was the lead vehicle. Driving up and stopping short. So we stopped about 400 metres short of just carnage. Just vehicles exploding. Couldn't really get anybody on the net, so our radios. But basically, Combat Team 1 had been ambushed pretty heavily. They lost about 4 vehicles, all of their kit pretty much, and they had to escape the ambush area. And it was a 360-degree ambush by what I think it was the Fedayeen, or it was the maritime militia. So we stopped short, got out of the vehicles, and it was the heaviest you've ever been. So it's not like the great body armour now. It was more like a flak jacket with a steel plate in it. And I got out and moved into the combat area. Just ran in. I led my section up to a series of buildings. I got shot at by RPG, which came quite close to me. And I remember one of the guys, Canada, saying, "Shit, Tomo's dead," because this RPG was going inside the wall.
Oh, so not.
They picked me up, my ears are ringing, and I was like, for fuck's sake. But we were getting shot at from one of these perpendicular alleyways. So myself and the boss at the time, a guy called Gaz, moved up onto a building, and when we got there, shot 2 people, and then moved everyone else forward. First time I'd ever thrown a live grenade after training. Every time I've thrown 2 grenades live in war and fucked them both up. Yeah,
there's a good story about that too. We know that story.
Yeah, so we were moving into a building. So I was like, right, I'm going to throw a grenade into the building and clear it before we jump up because it was quite high. And we're all carrying like 800 rounds of machine gun link and Foss grenades and things like that. And then threw a grenade, bounced off the lintel, bounced back at us, exploded. Not like in the movies where there's fireballs and all that kind of shit. Just
at least this one went off, not like your other one.
Yeah, no, I
didn't take the transition clip.
Didn't even go off when I shot at it.
So a transition clip is on a grenade. There's a little clip that stops it from the flyer thiever coming up to arm it. So again, story from Eric 5, Tomo threw one and he didn't take the transition clip off it, but then spent about 5 minutes trying to shoot it to make it explode.
Yeah, it did happen.
Anyway, yeah, carry on.
Here we go. So I've got the citation here.
Yeah, do you want to read it?
Yeah, okay. So this is mentioned in dispatches, which Ads has got as well. The guy from Herrick 5. Lance Corporal John, won't say my middle name, Thompson. Abu al-Qasib in southern Iraq on the 30th of March 2003. On the 30th of March 2003, as part of a 40-commando operation to clear enemy strongholds, Delta Company was tasked to clear the town of Al-Yahidiyah on the western edge of the company boundary. A combat team of heavy machine gun and Milan anti-tank weapons mounted in 4 patrol vehicles was ordered to proceed to the eastern edge of the town and establish a vehicle checkpoint prior to the company clearance operation. On approaching the town, an enemy ambush was sprung and the combat team came under effective enemy RPG and machine gun fire from both sides of the roads. There followed an intense engagement lasting for more than an hour as the enemy attempted to inflict casualties by fixing the lead elements of the company while infiltrating into its rear with small groups of lightly armoured men. Lance Corporal Thompson was in command of the lead vehicle to advance in support of the ambush combat team. Despite the oppressive hail of incoming fire, he pushed forward to stop his patrol vehicle only 200 yards short of the ambush area and immediately organised his men to lay down a large weight of suppressive fire onto the identified enemy positions. This prompt and decisive action surprised and disrupted the hitherto dominant enemy and served to regain some of the initiative, causing significant attrition and almost certainly saving the lives of some of his surrounding colleagues. Confident that his men had adequate direction, Lance Corporal Thompson then climbed onto a nearby roof of his troop commander in order to gain a clearer view of the exact location of the pinned down troops. As they were preparing to rejoin their men, they saw 3 enemy armed with RPGs in the alleyway to the rear. They neutralised them with small arms fire. That means we killed them. About this time, an enemy RPG exploded very near to him, temporarily stunning him. Despite his considerable distractions, his focus never shifted from the task in hand, and it was only minutes later that, under the cover of fire from other members of the company who had moved up to join the fight, Lance Corporal Thompson exposed himself to considerable danger by returning to one of the vehicles in the area under fire. He proceeded to turn the vehicle round and drive it back out of the danger area to safe ground, ensuring the survival of key equipment. He then returned on foot to recover a second patrol vehicle, while the remainder of the company withdrew under direct and indirect fire. Amid the exemplary conduct of many members of the company, the actions of Lance Corporal Thompson stands out as exceptionally gallant. His performance that day, both as an individual and a leader, was central to the success of the mission and thoroughly deserving of lasting public recognition. So, I mean, that's a citation, but the things that stand out to me is, as we were moving up, we moved into a building where there was a family, a family of local nationals. And as we moved through, they were petrified, absolutely petrified. And, the people, members of that family had wet themselves, and obviously they'd seen us, thinking that whatever propaganda they'd been told, that we were there to sort of hurt them, I suppose. But we ushered them to safety. When I extracted that first vehicle, I got in a pin scour. And a pin scour, when you put it into first gear, it's not first gear. First gear is reverse on a pin scour, but so you got to put it in second. And it was being shot at whilst I tried to turn it around in this road. About 3 other vehicles were on fire and exploding, and drove it back up to the company. And as I got out, there was an American Anglico. So he's a fast air controller.
Yeah.
And he's like, "God damn, you guys are crazy." And I was hanging out because it was about 4 hours, the whole thing, and ran back down the road rather than get into any cover and get the second one. Another last memory was just like some dude's foot, just like a sandal and a foot and an ankle, and then nothing, just like stood in the middle of the road. It was an exhausting day, a long, exhausting day. We were relieved by Alpha Company, so we could get more bullets and bombs and stuff, have some food and get some sleep. It was a long day, but it was a profound day for everybody in the company that people still do talk about, and it was excellent. It was excellent.
The things are out of that. I mean, you're talking about the carnage, like the first vehicle got blown up, and then you went up in support. But out of all that, did anyone get hurt?
Not one person.
No one got hurt.
No one.
And the stories that we'll talk about in a minute, like on Herrick 5, there was so much stuff that we did that we got away with, and and even on latter tours and stuff that I did. And you would have been the same way, when we were 40 again on Herrick 12. Stuff that we did there that people just got away with. And I'm like, how the fuck did that happen? Like, literally, how did it happen?
And I think, especially because you get back together, and back then, so you had one 24-hour stand down where you were flown out from your location. People would come and relieve you in place, and you'd fly out to a place called Dart, which is like a central hub. And you change your socks. So my socks were green by the time I'd got out, and I needed a new pair of boots. And your sweat would rot your crutch away of your trousers, and you'd just stink. And you'd have some fresh food, and then you'd be on the toilet for like 24 hours. Get a cot bed, and then you'd be back in. You'd fly back in to where you were, and then move on.
Relief in place.
Relief in place. That relief in place was around like sort of a Millionaire's Row, and I remember having a photograph. Actually, I got a photograph with. I found some aftershave in one of these rooms, and it's called Fashion Victim,
which you were.
Yeah, and I had another occasion. Well, one of the only 2 times I've ever been scared in my life, and this was we'd collected big bags of flour because the whole area had been deserted. These buildings were partially blown up, and there's some livestock there. Made our own bread out of the flour and got eggs off chickens and stuff. And this was back in the day when you'd get resupplied cigarettes. So you could like government cigarettes.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, it was good times. So I was an avid smoker then. Bit of a cool back in the day when it was cool. And we'd set out a sentry position outside of this bomber's concrete wall of this building where the rest of the company was. And then at night we'd got attacked, and I was outside just by myself in this little flower sentry position right in the middle of a road which is like slightly bigger than 2 lanes. And I was like, oh my god, as machine gun fire was coming down the road, just like hitting this flower, and it was just like puffing my face, and I thought, fuck, I'm a goner. I've got to get out of here. And even though it was only about 10 metres, it was 10 metres whilst machine gun fire was just ricocheting down the road to get behind this wall. And I thought, oh, this is it. And that's one of the 2 times, I tell you what, I've been scared.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't prepare you, does it? What we were talking about before, about guys in training and stuff. That sort of stuff, you can't prepare for that, I don't think. And it's your own, you can, it can be like a learned thing where, you know, you go through the training series and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, when you're in those sort of situations, some of the situations we were in, you know, you kind of just deal with your own sort of reactions, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the longer you're in a situation where you're in combat, the more in tune and, you know, in tone with the environment you get with it. And that's why when people come back, they have a really hard time dealing with those sort of things, is because they're still in tune.
Hyper aware.
Yeah,
hyper aware.
And it takes a long time.
I still am now, man. I used to get shit off my wife when we were living in Exmouth for looking at girls. And I'm like, I'm not looking for girls. I'm looking for a plastic bottle on the floor.
Watching their hands.
Yeah. or a bit of damp ground. Because, like, you know, we'll probably get onto this, is when you got blown up. You know, I was fucking fuming that day.
Well, we weren't even looking for IEDs then, because IEDs hadn't even really started. Yeah. That guerrilla warfare hadn't started yet.
There's I remember, like, patterns in rocks.
Well, I don't remember seeing any of that.
Yeah.
I was in fucking that long.
Yeah. I mean, that photograph's awesome.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
It's an awesome photograph.
I showed my daughter the other day.
Yeah.
And I'll put the photo up on the Instagram page. And yeah, I still don't know how I got out of it, but yeah, that's by the by. But do you remember? The first contact I remember us having, and I think the lads told me it was kind of the first one that J Company had when we was on when we were at Fob Price, was I think it was the third day I was with the company, and we went out onto the plateau, the other side.
Can we just go back a bit?
Yeah, go.
So in preparation, so this was really profound. So J Company was really unique. So, and it was the corporals at the time. We all said to each other, it's like something called a mourner vow, like a coming together of ranks who would speak openly and freely with each other. And what we did as a company, and we all would say it was the best corporals. I mean, it's obviously an arrogant statement, but the best corporals in the corps in one company at one time, and everybody was experiencing it and in tune. Was we customised all our kit and equipment for the role that you did. So if you were a commander, you would put underslung grenade launcher holsters on your kit. If you were a light machine gunner, you'd have a special type of kit. So we got all this sewn up. You know, you paid for it yourself. You became the role in which you were going to do. All bought warrior chest vests and things, because we were based in vehicles, so we couldn't have much on our backs. So we'd have to have it all around our front. And we took over from the Paras in Fob Price, near a town called Goresh. And they wear scrim, which is like a bit of netting around their helmets with something called a rand, which you would have on mountain boots. But it was basically a bit of inner tube that would then tie it all in, so that we wouldn't look too dissimilar from the outgoing group, so that all the sort of pressing engagements or probing attacks that the Taliban would have against the Paras wouldn't happen against a new group of people, so we'd kind of look similar. So we were set and fully prepared and fully rehearsed and fully committed to being in that location, and it was a really special company to be in.
Yeah, the lads were really good. The bond with the guys was awesome. I think bar being in M Company before the Herrick days, you know, with all the lads that were together there for that year, 18 months, 2 years that we were there together, you know, it was super tight knit.
Yeah, big time.
And I think that's why everything worked really well. Yeah, really well.
Complete respect across every troop in the roles in which they did. I mean, Ads and I were in Free Troop, the FSG, so we had the privilege of having absolute situational awareness, and we were in wheeled WMICs with heavy weapons on something called an all-informed chatnet, which means we could all speak freely, and the headquarters would hear us, and we would plan routes, and we would dictate the way where we were going. We got lost a few times. Certainly driving through Goresh town at night, leading 40 commandos. I think it was Log Company
with your second generation MVPs. That didn't really work.
If you go down a dead end, that's it. You're fucked.
Yeah.
and anyone could just be round one of these corners. But yeah, we were well swept up, really respectful of each other's roles, and all our vehicles were unarmoured.
And everyone else was in the new Vikings, which were armoured, and they was just sat there like a tin can.
Yeah, which must have been shit for them.
Yeah, it was shit.
They did have I suppose they had air conditioning.
They did have air conditioning, and we
smoked like 40 cigarettes a day in those days.
It's because we were a fucking bullet magnet. That's why.
28. Do you remember being awake for 28 hours?
Well, we did the company one of the company moves up to one was to Sangin and one was to Kijaki, wasn't it? That was before the very end up Silver, and they were just epic. Like literally epic
monsters.
Yeah, but like say going back to I remember being on the ground for 3 days. You guys had been there for a long time already. 2-3 weeks. We're on the top of that plateau. Do you remember? And the grav troops or the ground troops, guys that weren't in the vehicles like we were, they'd gone and done a patrol down by the river, and they were walking back up the hill. And I just remember hearing that distinctive, the getting mortared from.
Is that the one that was on Sky?
No. So this was. The only way I can explain it is, do you remember about 2/3 of the way through? I can't remember what the name of the town was called now. It was just the other side of the river. It was the first big town before Halibolakale, not Halibolakale, Zumbale.
Yeah.
There was like a little village there, and the plateau overlooked the second bridge going towards Kijaki. And this village.
Would you do Binozai?
Maybe.
Because you went over those 3 bridges, Tom, Dick, and Harry. As you went over.
Yeah, so it was over the last bridge.
That was the Bogra Canal. That's what.
Yeah.
The river in Iraq was called the Shat al Arab. That's just popped into my head now.
Yeah, so we were on this plateau. The lads were walking back up, and we started getting mortared. And I was on the corner, and
love being mortared.
And yeah, it was great. And I saw the muzzle flashes coming from this village. And then as the lads were coming up the hill and they got back into the wagons, they went to the bottom of the feature, and we all lined up on the top of this plateau, and we hammered the shit. But it was about a K away.
Yeah.
And I remember, do you remember one of the drivers, Steve? I'm not going to mention his second name. He had an SA8 which has got a maximum effective range on its own, up to 300 metres. And it was a K away, and he banged down about 8 mags. And I was like, that's
not doing anything.
Yeah. Anyway, that same village, do you remember we were doing a clearance? Like, we went really early in the morning. It was fucking ices, and there was loads of fog just sitting.
Yeah.
And we were sort of like, we weren't together as a troop. We were sort of like helping out the, supporting the troops as they were going into the buildings, clearing them. And it was toward the very end of the day, and we were like in a wadi. Do you remember this? And you were just a little bit up from me. You were like in the middle of a set of compounds, and I'd finished doing what I was doing, and I'd seen what they'd done. Where that contact that happened at the beginning of the tour.
I do remember that.
They'd patched all the 50 cal holes up in the village with like plaster, white plaster. And I decided, I'll go and have a look at those. So I was like, right, I went to my driver, right, down this wadi, and we went down. You remember this when I say it. And I was driving down this little road, and it opened up into a quad which had loads of women and kids in it. And we stopped, and I was having a little look, and like they were shocked because they didn't realise we were there. And they all started like looking at us. And then a 10-man Taliban team come out of the green belt just in front, and then saw us. We saw them. They ran across the road, ran round the back of the building we were next to, and started shooting us down the alley. We reversed out of it, so the tracer was just going through the wagon. Again, don't know how the fuck we weren't here. We reversed it backwards. The driver couldn't see because we had no wing mirrors. I was stood up on the seat looking over the back with the radio
ready
on
to
there,
get shot in the head.
trying to send a contact report. I fell out of the vehicle. Yeah, the radio thing, the radio came snapped off my headset. I was running after the wagon, getting shot at while they were reversing. Anyway, managed to get back in and come back. Come back and told you guys. We then pedalled. Do you remember this? We pedalled down the series. You might not. A series of like little like little ramps that went down to the green zone, and we literally leapfrogged each other, and we just vittled them all up as they were trying to escape up towards Sangin. Do you remember that?
Do you know what? Honestly, I don't remember a lot.
Don't remember that?
Yeah, I think it's because it was so. I tried not to think too much in Afghanistan. I was just there. I don't know if you remember, like prior to going out on patrols, we would line up, and I'm not really religious or anything, but we took it really, really seriously as a fire support group. You know, we all were in tune. And this is kind of the same when you talk about being, I'm going to say in tune again, in tune with your environment. And it was like, we will do anything that it takes, lose our lives, whatever, to protect the rest of the company. And we'll go anywhere, we'll be the first in and the last out to make sure everyone stays alive. And I used to, I was with my wife at the time, and I used to just sort of do a mantra or a prayer, saying I'm going to put myself. I don't care what happens. Put myself in harm's way. But it was everybody in the FSG group that used to do that.
You say you don't remember too much. What is one of the most? What is like one of the standout things that you remember? You know, there's got to be some, because it was quite a long tour, and we must have had. I can't think. We must have had at least. Well, it must have been every other day we were out on patrol, and every day we were in a contact.
Oh yeah, every day. Yeah,
every day.
You'd see the combat indicators of smoke goes up, people move out of villages, and then you literally just sit there and wait for a mortar to come in or a sniper around and shoot. A few things that I remember: the warning shot.
Yep.
I will always remember that forever.
There's two of them, weren't there?
I only remember one.
Okay.
I remember. Oh, in fact, there's more stuff that I remember actually. I remember getting tangled up in some fucking American barbed wire, driving down a 311 from Fob Rob back to Gresham at night.
Yeah.
I remember Op Silver and taking Sangin.
Yep.
And then the 101st Airborne coming in.
We'll spin that, didn't we?
Yeah. I remember Habibola Calais.
Yeah.
I remember
classic one.
That's the best one. I remember Habibola Calais.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because that was a what would you call a?
Well, I think we should contextualise it first, because we'd been over to Zumbale first. So we'd gone out on a series of MOGs, which is mobile operation groups. So basically, we're mobile.
Driving around the desert, waiting to get shot at. When we get shot at, we just go and see where we got shot at and kill anyone that was shooting at us, basically.
But it was the first time we'd seen a local civilian contractor had been executed. And I remember him being all bloated. I think his eyes were pecked out. Up at Zumbale, and then I think we may have come back, and then we were setting out to go on a 10-day patrol.
That was the first day, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's the first day. I wrapped after the first day.
But that, mate, carry on. That was hard. It was hardcore.
It was a hardcore day, but I always remember that time we were in a contact, and you had to sit back, and I was with 2 Troop. That was the second time I've thrown a grenade. I was talking to you on the net, giving you shit for being a pussy.
Yeah, it was my because we were always driving around four-wheel drive, weren't we?
Yeah.
And the drive shaft had broken
on multiple vehicles. We were carrying that much weight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had so much ammunition, but yeah. Do you remember? So going into that. It was one of the first. I think it was one of the only. Oh my god, my mind's gone.
This is why I think most of us should get back together again, because in a big group of us reminiscing and talking about it, we'll all be able to piece it together and go, yeah.
So it was the first purposeful attack. It was a attack on this village because it was a Taliban. Like, the people were in it that were just Taliban.
Well, Habibollah Calais was a place where a known mortar specialist was, with an 82 mil mortars, and eventually we found out that it was an ID construction lab.
That was further up there, wasn't it? And it was like that was right in the village, and we didn't even get anywhere near that.
Do you want to start off with Habibollah Calais?
Yeah, so we did all the battle prep in Fod Price. Can't remember much about that, but I remember it was all purposeful. We were supposed to go up through, down to the river, onto the canal, along the canal, and then just basically charge in. And the different troops had different paths along different canal lanes, didn't they? And we were at the front. But what fucked it all up was just as we went along the canal and went along our little lane, one of the Viking tracks went. Do you remember? And they had to change the Viking track, which delayed us about half an hour.
I remember going along the northern road on the Bogra Canal before the sluice gate.
Yeah, so this is before that.
And seeing another dead body.
Yeah. Well, I think that was
that might have been slightly after, because I remember turning to my driver, Biggs.
But they were killing contractors all over the place, weren't they?
I mean, they had a letter stamped to him saying any ISAF, so International Security Armed Forces, anyone who works with them is going to be executed.
So this whole attack was kind of like a Second World War SAS vehicle raid. We were supposed to go in.
Well, Merch used the verb destroy.
Well, that's so.
Which is key, because there are mission verbs like hold, protect, secure, echelon, whatever the whole list of them. But
so I remember
destroy is very.
I remember going up to this corner, and the Viking lost the track. We lost all element of surprise because they decided that we were going to hold where we were. They were going to fix the Viking track, and then we were going to crack on. So that went, and I was just thinking, we are going to get so smashed here.
I said it to Biggs. I said it's going to kick off in a minute.
They know we're coming. And we were at the front.
Yeah.
So we were the front two vehicles of the vehicle packet with the Vikings behind, with all the ground troops.
Bearing in mind for anyone listening, you can't turn around on this canal.
No,
road.
it was like
once you're down it, that's it.
Severe ditches either side, wasn't it? And they were in tracked vehicles that could go down and turn round, and we weren't, because we were in Land Rovers that were top heavy, and they were just fucking.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to turn.
Yeah. So I remember going along the canal road, and just as we come to the first set of buildings, we got ambushed.
Yeah.
And it was like 20 or 30 metres away. It was the berm next to where the road was. Yeah. And none of us got hit. And it was such a surprise. And then the world erupted. You talk about that 360 contact area.
Yeah.
It was basically a 300-degree contact area. And how many people do you reckon, how many Taliban were there? There must have been like...
It's estimated, I think it was estimated between 50 and 80 was the number.
Like, and it was something like, I remember, because it was early in the morning, I'm shaking talking about it, like I could feel my stomach shaking. It was like something out of Star Wars.
Yeah,
there was that much tracer flying everywhere.
Bearing in mind,
and that was us.
Tracers one in every.
Well, we had 1 and 1, didn't we? We had 1 and 1 in our first. In our first ammo boxes, we had like 1 and 1, so we could see where it was coming from.
Yeah.
It was so
and our tracer's red, whereas the enemy was sort of Russian ammunition's green, so you could tell where it was all coming from.
And it was, and one of the things that I remember, because it was the first time we took the GMG on the ground.
Citation there.
Yeah, the first time I remember using the GMG the grenade machine gun, is we had a load of trees over the top of us.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember Jacko pinged a guy, and this is where it's really, really weird. It's going to sound something like about out of the A-Team. There was a water tower, like by where the canal was. We must have been about 60 metres from the canal. Jacko saw it, fired a couple of grenades, and they exploded in the trees next to us. which cleared the area for him. He then fired a couple more grenades into the top of this tower and hit the tower, and the guy fell off the top of the tower like something out of the A-Team onto the deck. And and then the rest of it was just a bit of a blur.
Well, really. I think 2 Troop were on the other side.
Yeah, they were on the road that was like 60 metres away to our right as we were going up.
But there was another troop that was on the high ground in Janubi Nurzai, so the village on the other side of Tom, Dick and Harry, so the south of the south of the river.
So us two were with the front of the Grav troops, and the other 2 WMIC. So our course on the troop was split, which had Russ and what was his name?
Drinky.
No, not Drinky. Yeah, it must have been Drinky. Yeah, and Drinky was on the other side, because that's when they dropped that 2,000-pound JDAM like 50 metres away from the other side of the hill, if you remember that. So they were getting shot at.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, so I mean, it was multiple firing points over about 1,000 metres square.
Yeah.
And I remember. So from my perspective, so mine was the lead wagon, and you were behind me about 50 metres, maybe closer.
We were literally a picture of his
asses. And then 100 metres or so was the rest of the company.
Yeah.
Main, TAC, and main, and I think one troop.
Yeah.
And then it all kicked off, and then we started firing back. Bearing in mind, I'm carrying like 4,800 7.62 rounds.
So when you talked about that 10-day op, we were supposed to be carrying 10 days ammunition and rations with us, because this was only supposed to be like a real quick hit thing, and then we were off into the desert again, and it did not.
No, I think we had maybe 3,250 cal rounds. I think you had tons of boxes of GMG, which are big boxes,
which we had to literally tell Bastion we wanted, because they gave us like 2 boxes, and I was that's going to go in 1 minute.
So I remember this is from what I remember is it kicked off, and then I think we returned fire. My SOP anytime I was shot at would just be to point my machine gun in the direction of the firing point and just fire 200 bullets in one go. And what that would do, it would allow the gunner above me. And this is the most wonderful thing about being a commander in a WMIC with a 50 cal just like above your head. It's like when it fires, it's like being hit on the head with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
So we've got RPGs. Most likely, I can't remember if there's any 107 Chinese rockets.
No, it was mostly
mortars.
There was a little bit of mortar fire, but it wasn't really directly at us, because I think it was more the other side of the river.
So I remember RPGs exploding next to the wagon.
Lots of 7.62.
And then we just moved forward. So it was my call sign. I think it was 3-3 Charlie. 3-1 out. I don't know which one it was. I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
3-2.
3-2. Well, Ads and I, we basically just drove straight into the contact.
Well, we were the ambush.
Yeah.
We were the ambush.
2 vehicles. Bearing in mind, it's on these are berms, so they're high as shit.
Yeah.
You're really exposed. So we just drove straight into the ambush, and for about an hour, I think we were firing.
Let's talk about, in generic warfighting terms, what happens when you go into an ambush. What are we taught from day one, week one? Break contact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was like that. I remember getting on that saying, contact wait out. We're in an ambush. We need to get out of this area. You need to turn your vehicles around so we can move. And then I just remembered, no 3-2 Delta. You maintain your position. And I was like that. We're in the middle of an ambush. Like, we're literally, like, they're there. They're on the ambush. They're like on the side. They're there. I can see them. And then we just turned and fired, and they shit themselves. And I remember they ran off. I'm not sure if we capped a couple of them or not. I can't really remember. It was still quite dusk when we did it.
It was just savage, intense fire.
But as soon as that opened up, everywhere opened up from all sides. Like our drivers had minimies, didn't they? Do you remember?
Yeah, because I mean, my driver was like, "Fucking, this is shit. All I've got is this steering wheel." Like, well, you've got your rifle, and he's like, "It's not good enough. It's not good enough."
Yeah.
So, what was on the vehicle? So my vehicle had 2 AT4 anti-tank weapons, I had a javelin clue
we had javelins
with 2
there.
missiles each.
Yeah.
We had 3,250 cal. I think it's either 4,800 GPMG or
I thought we
6,400.
took quite a lot that day. I think we had 6,000. I think we had around about that.
We always carried 10 mags of 5.56. I had 2 grenades. My driver had a mini-me and about 800 rounds or 1,600 rounds.
Yeah.
And then we all had pistols. And it was just so intense. But I lost my hearing almost straight away because of when a 50 cal fires above you, like I said, it's like a sledgehammer hitting your head. and I had RPGs exploding close to my vehicle, and I was trying to say contact, wait out, and get comms with Merch and TAC, and I couldn't hear anything. But I've been in contacts before where RPGs exploded next to my vehicle and knocked the radio out. So I was like, this fucking radio. But what it was the 50 cal was firing so close to my head that it burst both my eardrums. So I couldn't hear anything anyway.
So do you remember? So you couldn't get comms. It was so loud, I couldn't hear. And I remember I was like that, fuck this. And I unclipped my radio and I ran back to the front Viking to tell them what was going on. And then I ran back again. Because like we had no way of hearing what they wanted us to do.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. I remember.
But the firing was that intense. Like my gun broke. So, but I didn't realise it because it was in the intensity of the fire.
It was barreled, wasn't it? Like it just shot.
No, it was it was like a retaining pin on the hand grip. So it'd
Oh,
fallen
that was
out.
right.
So every
Yeah,
time
yeah.
it'd be like, and as my hand would move, it would drop down and would stop firing because the sear wouldn't allow the mechanism to go forward. I was like, fuck's sake, that happened. And then, because I had to unclip myself as well, because I was getting, as you're in a contact, you're like, what's the ammo state? What's the ammo state? How much ammunition you got left? And we'd gone from 10 days worth of ammunition down to 10% really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. That was in the first hour, I reckon. Not even an hour. It was shorter than an hour.
And that was with almost every type of nature. So I unclipped myself and left my vehicle and ran back. I think you may have come with me as well.
Probably.
Back to the rest of the company who were down in cover.
Yeah, I'm not going to say they were hiding, but it was like they
were sensibly in cover.
Because it was almost a case. I remember our opinions behind it. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And we were stood on the middle of the road, in the open,
with just bullets.
yeah. And dust, pepper potting up everywhere. And we were like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, literally, what are you doing?
But I think our mindset was all about mobility, speed versus protection. So I would rather have full visuals, and I'd rather use speed than protection because obviously, I mean, there's a difference between tanks. Is you have more armor on a tank, which means it's more survivable, but then you sacrifice speed. But mobility is the key.
But I think we got some ammo.
Yeah, so
then the lads started shipping ammo up to us then, didn't they?
But it's like running down. So what are you wearing? You're wearing 10 magazines worth of ammunition. I don't know how much that weighs. You're wearing full plate body armour, front, back and sides. Your helmet. You're sweating your tits off because it's redders. Your rifle and your pistol. And then you run down and then you pick up some 50 cal machine gun ammo, which is 16 kilograms a box for 100 rounds. And I think 2 or 3 boxes in each hand and belts over our necks. So we're probably running back up with 50 or 60 kilograms extra of ammunition, potentially. I mean, if you think about at least 2 boxes in each hand, that's 32 kilos each. So there's 64.
Plus the stuff around
your neck. So plus what you're wearing anyway, across, I'm going to say 100 metres at least.
Yeah. Well,
back to the wagons whilst being shot at.
So people might listen to this and go, well, why are the commanders going back and getting it? Well, we had a driver
who could drive,
which had to drive the vehicle. He also had a mini machine gun, so a mini-me. And you had your top cover guys, which had the heavy machine guns on, so the 50 cal machine guns and the GMGs. So the only people that could go and do a resupply was us.
Yeah, it was a Canadian.
As well as control the battle space.
But that was what's so great about the company is everybody was so swept up in their drills. Even when we come back in, it was like a well-oiled machine. So the driver and the top cover could operate, and get themselves out. So we resupplied. And I think it's around. We resupplied everyone, and it's still going off. And then your GMG broke.
Was it?
Yeah, your GMG broke. It stopped firing. The mechanism wouldn't go forward, and So I
remember.
I did the trials for the grenade machine gun.
Didn't you?
And I taught the company how to use them. So I'd done the trials, so I knew how they worked. So I was like, "Fucking, let me have a look at it. Let me have a look at it." So I jumped on top. Bearing in mind, I don't know, Wimmick's 2 meters high.
I reckon. Yeah, you're a good. I reckon you're a good 8 to 10 foot high.
Yeah, and then you've got the gun itself, which is in a mount, and a GMG's higher than a 50 cal. Yeah. So I'm on top there, and a good machine gunner is just covered in oil. So we would use it's called OX90, but it's like engine oil. So the bigger the thicker the lubricant, the hotter the weapons get, the longer the lubricant lasts on it, the better the weapon fires. So I started to strip down this grenade machine gun whilst we were still in contact. And what had happened was a big bit of metal. I wish you could see it. You basically pull out the body of the machine gun, and I think it was one split pin, just one little tiny split pin had broken, and it was right at the end. Yeah. And all I had to fix it was 14 gauge wire. And I fixed it a couple of times, and I would test it, and it would break, and it break, and then it managed to get fixed. But I was up the top there as you hear that wonderful, beautiful, natural sound of zip, zip, zip as all these bullets are going past your head. Should I read the citation? This is Happy Bolakale.
Yeah, go on then.
So, I mean, I was lucky enough to... Your MID was for this as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mentioned dispatches for this, which is the oldest of all gallantry awards. And it came back from back in the day when, like, the English kings would go and fight up in the northern parts of Britain and into France, and it was, if there was a pikeman or a specific soldier or a commander who had done something exceptionally gallant, then a mention of him would be put in dispatches back to London or wherever the king was. So this is mine. I was graciously awarded a conspicuous gallantry cross for this day,
which is one below a Victoria Cross.
Yeah,
is it not?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so it goes Victoria. So the ones that are in contact with the enemy are Victoria Cross, conspicuous gallantry cross, military cross, and then mentioned dispatches.
So conspicuous gallantry cross is the second highest honour you can get on the battlefield.
So this is Habibullah Calais, Helmand, Afghanistan, the most dangerous part of the world at the time. And all our tours are in Sangin and in Helmand, all of them. And the wonderful thing is, Marines did 2 out of every 3 tours, and we only I think it was probably 5 or 6,000 of us at the time, and over 50% of those 5 or 6,000 aren't in fighting commando units. So a really small proportion of the British Armed Forces was doing 2 out of every 3 tour. So a lot of crazy people walking around.
Some crazy ass people.
So during the deployment of Juliet Company on Operation Herrick 5 in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, Corporal Thompson. My daughter's just walked in. Afghanistan. Corporal Thompson has on countless occasions displayed exceptional bravery and leadership, particularly under fire. His open and unarmoured vehicle has led the company group throughout, and as such has always been at the forefront of many engagements with the Taliban. On numerous occasions, his vehicle has been hit by small arms fire and shrapnel. Unperturbed, he has constantly put himself in harm's way as he personally seeks to fight the enemy. His indomitable spirit is truly inspirational to the remainder of his company, and he is invariably the last to disengage from a firefight. On the 10th of January 2007, during an operation deep in Taliban-held territory near Garesh, Thompson displayed conspicuous gallantry. The operation also required the company to conduct searches in the Taliban stronghold of Habibullah Calais, the scene of numerous previous engagements and where the enemy had time to prepare defences. The enemy's numbers proved to be far greater than expected and contributed to the intensity of the ensuing fight. At first light, as the company was moving into position with Thompson's vehicle leading the way, they were ambushed on three sides with an overwhelming weight of fire. It says here, nothing new for Thompson. But the remainder of the company also began to receive fire from multiple directions. Dangerously exposed and realising the entire company was pinned down from behind, Thompson engaged 5 separate firing positions and soon, with ads, because he was right next to me.
No, he was on his own.
He soon became the focus for the enemy and received withering and accurate fire. His dedicated actions suppressed the enemy sufficiently for the company to dismount from its protective Viking vehicles, suffering burst eardrums from proximity of RPG and machine gun fire, and with his vehicle hit by numerous enemy rounds, he continued to engage the enemy despite the personal dangers. Despite having only one functional weapon system on his vehicle and running low on ammunition following prolonged engagements, Thompson realised that many colleagues were still dangerously exposed. Without any regard whatsoever for his own safety, he remained in the killing area, engaging the enemy at ranges of only 50 metres. His utter selfless and courageous actions allowed the company to win the firefight. Conducting a hasty ammunition resupply, which we've just spoken about, and swapping his broken machine gun, Thompson returned to... I must have carried my GPMG back.
I don't... You lose track of stuff, don't you, over time?
Thompson returned to the fight yet again at the front of the company. For the remainder of the battle, he provided fire support to one troop as it seized a significant weapons cache. This contact was the fiercest the company had endured for the 6-month tour. That mission success was achieved and no friendly casualties were sustained was attributed to the fortitude, bravery and level-headedness of Thompson in the face of overwhelming enemy fire. He displayed gallantry, determination, outstanding professionalism and exceptional leadership far beyond anything expected or imagined throughout the entire operation. This particular act of bravery led to the defeat of an overwhelming number of Taliban and was executed without any thought for his own safety. Universally respected and revered, he has been the key to the success and morale of his company, and through his actions many lives have been saved. The sum of all Thompson's repeated bravery and selflessness in the face of the enemy is extraordinary and worthy of the highest public recognition. You don't do any of this stuff by yourself. None of it's by yourself. But we were a well-oiled machine, and there was a lot of love and comradeship between every single one of us, and we took our jobs very, very seriously in a very, very serious world. And a very, very serious place. And this is why you see so many military commandos popping up and doing mindfulness and life coaching and all that kind of stuff. Is we understand what's really important. We don't get swept away in social media and fashion and all of these peripheral distractions. Life is really simple. It's about 1, being alive. 2, being happy. 3, having gratitude for your fellow human. 4, in Goresh, went loads of ice cream if you can get it. Do you remember Christmas Day?
Yeah. No, I was on R&R Christmas.
Fucking Christmas Day. So now I've got a drone. I've got a DJI Mavic Mini drone, which is amazing.
No, in fact, no one was there for that. Yeah, when it went down.
The government spent, I think they spent like £22,000 on these piece of shit polystyrene UAVs.
It was really cash.
Oh, it was crap.
Yeah.
But Christmas Day, one of them, they were flying around and just looking with their sort of cameras. I think these are Royal Artillery people who called themselves pilots. They weren't pilots. They're like computer gamers. But one had crashed and we had to go out on Christmas. I think it was Christmas Day to go recover it and try and find it. And I was like,
it wasn't Christmas Day.
Was it Eid?
I was on R&R over Christmas, and I remember being on that and just thinking, why are we doing this?
That was it.
And the guy that found it wanted a stupid amount of money to find this broken bit of polystyrene.
Yeah, and it was literally polystyrene packaging that you get from the washing machine.
Yeah.
Christmas Day was awesome. Christmas Day, we're all in the sort of tented galley in Fob Price, which was Fob Price was broken down between American Green Berets on one side. Some Pathfinders came in, I think, from the Paras. They had a little compound.
And our BRF.
Brigade Reconnaissance Force. And then we had the main part of it. And we're in there with like Christmas hats on. Because it's all protected. Eating Christmas dinner and just heard and went out to investigate it. Basically, you'd pay local warlords money around your area to secure your area. And we had an A&A group, but as you came off the road and then you turned into our place, you're not supposed to stay on tracks or use the same tracks twice, which is really difficult when you move about as much as the frequency as we were. And 3 guys had tried to plant an IED in one of the tracks, and it went off, which was hoofing. And we drove out to see what it was at night. And like, fucking hell, what's that? And it was literally a guy like kneeling down with the top of his body gone. Another guy's face was gone. Another guy had lost his arms. And they were all 3 of them dead around there. But better them than us, because it could have been any one of us. You know, and Ads has got first-hand experience about what it's like to drive into a bomb.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah, so much fun. But yeah, I think what we might do is we've been going nearly 2 hours now.
Wow.
I reckon we do a part 2 to this.
Yeah.
So what I think we should do, just to tie this up, is what are you doing now? Like,
Well,
what are you up to now?
So I was supposed to leave the Marines 9 days ago. That's my 22 years done. But, I know COVID-19 has been bad for some people, but it's been fantastic for me because I got an extra 6 months. It's really difficult to find new employment.
When there is none.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm currently working on a web-based business. Well, not a web-based business, but a website called teachcoachmentor.co.uk. It's not up and running yet. I've got the website going, waiting to be released. I bought the property rights to Teach Coach Mentor, and it's something that we learned in coming back from Herrick 5. There was this new thing that came into Lympston. It was Teach Coach Mentor, and it was about, hey, let's treat recruits differently.
Let's listen to what they think and what they say, how they feel.
And I was totally against it because in my mind, if you can't get over a 6-foot wall, fuck off. We don't want you. You are useless. Go and work at McDonald's or something. But it was an epiphanal moment in my life, because what it taught me was that your brain doesn't know what's real, so therefore you can create the reality that you want. And in doing that, by setting visionary goals, big visionary goals, and making them real by seeing the colours in your minds and picturing it, that you can change your life to the life that you choose. So if anyone believes in destiny, which I don't, but you can create a destiny. So it's based upon that. And it's based upon some really simple skills. It's about peak performance psychology. It's about building the individual into something more ambitious, happier, and better than they are. And it's based around 5 tenets. And this is, so the human mind can handle between 5 and 7 things, depending on your level of coping strategies. And that's either in a nature-based way, you get it genetically. So you might not have as much inflammation when you're stressed, or whether you get a virus or a disease or get injured, or whether it's through nurture, i.e. training, exposure, experiences, those sorts of things. So 5 things. First one, and it's a central tenet to everything, you have to be happy. If you're not happy, there's no way you can expect anybody else to be happy around you. You've got to be happy and content with yourself. The second fundamental is your social interactions. So the people that you love, your wife, your children, they've got to be fulfilling. They've got to be fulfilling for them. The people that you work with, the people that you meet in the street, the stranger, the person who's being disrespectful or aggressive towards you. You've got to have positive interactions. And they all feed back. So if you've got positive interactions, it's going to make you happy. This is the third important tenet. Mental and physical health. Eat right. Sleep well. Sleep is the most important of mental and physical health. Get the right amount of sleep. Whether you do that by waking up at the same time every morning, and then move into a routine where you start to get tired at the right time. Wake up at the same time every morning. Get that sleep. It's the only way you can get the waste products out of your brain and think clearly. Eat right. Get a good balanced diet. And not this crap that the government keeps pushing out by you should have this much and this much and this much. Go on to YouTube, look at Thomas DeLauer, look at intermittent fasting, look at the benefits of fats and proteins. You know, stay away from carbs and sugars, because it's carbs and sugars that really cause a problem. And a good level of exercise. Now in the military, we don't do exercise right after training. You know, Ads is a physical training instructor as well, so he knows exactly. We push ourselves to 100%, 120% sometimes. Whereas what you need to do, in my from what I've looked at, and I was in quite poor shape, and I'm getting in better shape now, is you need to do a graduated level of moderate exercise and then test yourself at specific times. Maybe it's every 6 weeks you do something super hard. You don't do things super hard every day. You build up to it and then you do something hard and test yourself. So be physically fit. The fourth one is financial responsibility. Get in touch with your finances. Spend money that you have and have a good financial plan to save for the future, because it will soon come to a point, and we'll probably get this on to the next if we speak again.
Yeah.
For the situation that I'm in, is it's something that you can absolutely control with a bit of discipline, and be happy in knowing that you have got savings and you've set yourself up. Because ultimately we need to leave something for our future generations. And the fifth one is career and ambition. Find something that you're passionate about and that you like to do. You're not waking up and going to work. You're waking up and doing a thing that you like. Doesn't matter how much money it generates, because if you're doing something you're passionate about, the rewards will come to that. So there's a guy called Napoleon Hill who in the 20s created a methodology called the Science of Success. There is a world of abundance. Don't be afraid of going out there and thinking, no, there's too many hairdressers in this location, or there's too many massage therapists in this location, or there's too many peak coaches on Facebook. It all looks that way. But if you're good at what you do, you'll get those. And that's, you can do it with a Venn diagram of all those. Because if you're happy at work, you're going to be a happy person. If you're happy at work, you're going to generate money in your financial stability. If you've got financial stability, you're going to be happy. If you've got financial stability, you can reinvest into the work that you're doing or the business that you're doing. If you've got financial stability, you can go out and create opportunities and experiences for the people that are in your social group. You can generate things for your children to make their lives better. If you're mentally and physically healthy, you're going to be happy, because you've got endorphins going around and you're flushing out antioxidants. You can have a great sex life with your partner. You can run around with your kids. You can go and do the sports and activities that you want to do, as well as go to work full of energy and full of beans, which then generates more money. So it all fits in. So and it's based upon Maslow's hierarchy of needs, really simple pyramid diagram. And then my life experience. So what have I learned? Because I've made shit tons of mistakes. Loads of mistakes. You know, if there's more podcasts we could talk about some times for sure. But what I want to do is, I don't want to waste time for people. It's all about creating a better community. I mean, we're in this huge community of 7 billion people, but we need to invest in our communities. It starts off with you and it builds up. The center of it is you, and it builds up through your family, through your children, local community, and doing things. So I want to get younger people to the stage of understanding that I am at, so that tomorrow is better for everybody. And that's what my business is going to be.
Sounds good, mate. And you know what? From what you're saying there, the things that you've learned and the experiences and being empathetic to what people's needs are, it's going to be something good that you're going to be able to put forward there, I think. What was the website called again? teachcoachmentor.co.uk. There we go. For everyone that's listening.
It's not up and running yet, but it will be in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Mate, we're going to do an episode 2 of this, or a second part of this, because we've really got a load more to cover.
Lots to talk about.
We literally scratched the surface in 2 hours. I appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on.
Mate, it's good to see you again.
That's it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with John Thompson. If you want to give us a follow on Instagram, search for the Grumpy Surfer Podcast. I'd also appreciate any feedback you guys would like to give. Thanks for listening.